Agatha Christie is the best-selling fiction author of all time. She's crafted an absolutely staggering number of mysteries, including books with billions of copies sold and a record-breaking play in her portfolio. Throughout the years, her works have been adapted into video games as well, from a 2007 point-and-click adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express to 2016's ABC Murders. In more recent times, we've seen releases such as Hercule Poirot's The First Cases, The London Case, another adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express, and now Death on the Nile, the latest investigative adventure title to place players in the shoes of Poirot alongside newcomer Jane Royce. That's right, this time you'll be alternating between characters. But does Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile spell the death of the franchise, or is it a mystery fit for a fabled detective? Let's investigate in our full review. But real quick, the algorithm is working against us and only you can crack the code. Head on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to reveal exclusive perks like early and ad-free content, Discord access, and a shout out at the end of every single video. It's elementary, my dears. Your indie gaming community is waiting for you. Agatha Christie Death on the Nile is the latest sleuthing adventure game based on one of Christie's classic mysteries. This version of Death on the Nile is a reimagining of the original story that transports Poirot and his lore to the groovy 1970s. This time around, players will also get the opportunity to play as up-and-coming private detective Jane Royce, as both investigators work towards solving an entangled set of mysteries. What seems like an ordinary cruise through the Nile ends up being something far more sinister, and if that weren't enough, there are various other murders, deaths, and betrayals to be solved across the globe, which means you'll need to gather clues, interrogate civilians, and solve an onslaught of puzzles to get to the bottom of these cases. If you played the previous entry, 2023's Murder on the Orient Express, you'll have a pretty good idea of what to expect from Microids' latest release in terms of gameplay. The core gameplay loop involves interrogating suspects, breaking down clues on the game's built-in mind map, and ultimately forming connections to crack cases. It's a simple game to play, with a solid variety of difficulty options, and even a hint system to ensure everyone will be able to solve the mysteries presented. This in some way feels sacrilegious to say, but the writing in Death on the Nile is acceptable. Not the book, to be clear, just this retelling of it. There's nothing outstandingly clever here, but the plotlines manage to be entertaining enough to keep the players progressing forward, even if the mysteries themselves can be quite predictable. I was often able to guess the solution long before I could locate all of the clues or talk to the correct folks to solve the case. I did find myself doing a wee bit of wandering, but that's mainly because I just hadn't noticed a singular interactive point that would have progressed the story along. But other than that, there isn't a whole lot of time wasting, as your goal is usually quite obvious. The puzzles presented aren't particularly challenging, and the game generally moves along at a relatively brisk pace, while clue collecting can be mundane at times. At least each case, of which there are many, does present a unique collection of clues and puzzles, which range from picking locks to fitting luggage into a trunk, Tetris style. There's nothing here you haven't seen a million other times in a puzzle game, but they do serve their purpose effectively. To the game's credit, it also tries to offer further variety through small mini-games, such as having to stand in the correct location of an area to eavesdrop on characters having private conversations without being spotted. And for the collectible enthusiasts among us, there are even collectible golden mustaches and vinyls, which can be used to unlock art and music respectively within the game's museum. With the dual protagonist system this time around, you might be wondering how that impacts Death on the Nile, and the answer is it doesn't really change anything too dramatically. Switching between characters throughout gameplay more or less serves as a way for two different plot threads to come together, which, yes, are indeed interconnected with the same cast of characters. Outside of the plot connections, controlling both Hercule and Jane is the same, with neither having any particularly unique abilities, only their own motivations. Even so, it is interesting to see how multiple perspectives ultimately converge. The fact that there are many unique locations to explore throughout this campaign also helps to keep the experience from becoming too stale. There are hotels in Egypt with cocktail parties, bungalows in Mallorca, disco parties, and of course the infamous titular cruise on the Nile, the one the game's named after. The game also features a confrontation system where you essentially call people out on their bullshit to pinpoint which part of the statement has an obvious fallacy. It's honestly pretty satisfying to call someone out and watch them try to worm their way out of a half-truth, which quickly made this my favorite part of the game. On the opposite side of the spectrum are the time-based reenactment segments where you have to figure out who was doing what when during each increment along a timeline. Don't get me wrong, it's not challenging, it's just not fun. Death on the Nile presents pleasant visuals overall, though the characters can lean a bit too far on the uncanny side, often coming across as stiff and lifeless action figures with awkward animations. Some characters were given more love and care than others, and it's very obvious when it comes to the finer details, but at least the environments looked respectable, fleshed out with plenty of colorful set pieces and nature. For what it's worth, the game runs well. I didn't come across any major crashes in my time playing it, with just a few smaller bugs involving audio dropping out at random moments, which created a few impromptu moments of silence, if you will. I also briefly tested the game out on Steam Deck and didn't run into any major issues. It's certainly not the ideal way to play this title, but it is perfectly serviceable for those who prefer to take their mysteries on the go. There is plenty of voice work to fill in the gaps, and most of it is pretty well done. When it's not awkwardly fading into obscurity, the soundtrack for Death on the Nile is surprisingly excellent as well. An eclectic mix of smooth jazz and 70s-inspired dance and rock hits. Each track fits its respective circumstances like a glove, making it one of the standout aspects of the entire experience. Overall, despite lackluster character models and some audio hiccups, the game looks and sounds pretty decent for a smaller budget release, similar to my experience with the last Microids published Christie title. While it is more of the same game, Agatha Christie Death on the Nile is a well-made product that has its quirks and can get a bit repetitive at times, but ultimately offers decent fun that fans of Agatha Christie's classic will enjoy. The plot is merely a vehicle for the puzzles, which is understandable, and the puzzles, while generic, are mostly enjoyable to solve. Audio presentation is also impressive, despite a few hitches. If you enjoy more casual detective adventure titles that aren't overly violent or complex, the game offers solid comfort food. It may come off as a bit shallow for more hardcore gamers out there who are looking for a challenge, but everyone else could do much worse. If you're a fan of the original story and liked the last Microids Agatha Christie game, consider investigating this one further. On our scale ranging from as low as the dreaded indie Krampus all the way up to the elusive golden genie lamp of approval, I am awarding Agatha Christie Death on the Nile the bronze genie lamp of approval.